Original title: I, 29 female, found out my husband, 34 male, is obsessed with our boss daughter, and I have no idea what I could do, or how I should proceed. For some context first, I, 29, and my husband, 34, works for a small RMG firm here. We were both recommended through a relative of mine. I have been working here for about 6 years, my husband for about 7 years. During the work time, our boss would occasionally bring his then teenage daughter to work. She should have been around 15-ish when we first met her, and had her interact with the employees and stuff to show her what we were doing, how things work, etc. Fast forward to January of this year, the boss brought her in, officially, letting us know that she will be taking over a good deal of his work, overlooking things. We were initially hesitant, considering she was so young, turned 20 this year. But ultimately, she wasn't taking over, more so learning to handle the business, while the boss managed other work, I suppose. It helped that she herself was also very keen on cooperating and taking advice, often holding meetings to discuss things, and making sure she herself is the last to leave work almost every time. It's been an overall good development in that regards. The issue started initially a few months after she started. She would occasionally hold office events, just to lighten the mood. And this earned her a lot of praise from all of us, since it's not something the old boss would have time to look into. We were all talking about her, so it didn't feel too weird at first when my husband joined in on the praising. How impressive it is she's so young but so mature. How she's been a breath of fresh air in the office. Everyone's so motivated to work cause of her, etc. With hindsight, it seems like that was just his in on talking about her with me in general. Every now and then, he'd start singing her praises. When we're at home, a huge talking point always being how she's so mature for her age and understanding, even pointing out how we weren't at that age. I didn't take it much to heart, until one time I joked that it was fine if he was immature at times, and that I would love him regardless. And his response was something along the lines of, "Well, you were too, unlike her." I think that was the first time I felt a bit bad, because it felt like he actually was just comparing me to her now. But I tried not to think too much about it. This slowly spiraled too, going from talking about her maturity to looks, how she can still look good while being so busy with studies and work, how she, and I quote, was definitely more gifted compared to other girls. And once, out of insecurity, I asked if he thought she was prettier than me. He gave me a, "Of course you're attractive to me, but objectively, like not considering my attraction to you, she is prettier." This messed with me for a while, and we ended up having a fight, where I essentially banned him from bringing her up with me, if it's not work-related. Also adding to it was the fact that he started taking extra work every now and then, and working overtime, and while I initially thought it was to just earn extra money, I later found out it was simply because he knew she usually heads home late too, usually after most, if not all, office employees left. Fast forward to a few days back, weekend happened. Husband was out with his friends, and my laptop was at the repairs, so I used his laptop without his permission. We are relatively free with each other's devices, like, we never have a reason to use each other's devices. But if for some reason we did, the other didn't mind, so I didn't think much of it. I had put on some vids on autopay as background noise as I did some work. When I opened his PC folder, and on the left quick access bar, there was a folder with our boss's daughter's name. I had to click it, and when I did, I actively couldn't believe what I was seeing. A folder of over 1K plus pics of her, screenshots from Instagram and other apps, any and every pic he could find of her, and an insane number of pics just taken without her consent, like with either a hidden camera or his phone at the office, ranging from her just sitting or working, to some from a high enough angle to get cleavage or down blouse, and even a few under the table shots, though those didn't have anything to show, from what I had seen. This creeped me out beyond anything, since it was almost impossible to place my husband, who I have always known as the sweetest guy, for the 6 years we have been married, as someone who would do something like this. I was shocked and just didn't really know how to react. If I should feel disgusted or sad, angry, I didn't know. But then it got worse. I used search to look up her name on his laptop and found something that basically turned any form of sorrow or sadness I would have felt into just pure disgust. He basically had a folder poorly hidden deep in a number of folders, just full of photoshopped pics of her, some solo, some with him, some with other members of the office, and some just absolutely vile and disgusting. I deleted all traces of me having seen or searched for those, though I doubt it was necessary, since my husband isn't the most tech-savvy to begin with, took a pic of some of the shit I found, and left the laptop. I was furious, but I also didn't want him to know yet. So I acted normal that night, and then the next day, I called up my cousin. She was pregnant and her husband was away, and asked if she needed help, and used that as an excuse to move in and help her for a bit. I have talked to my husband, though limited, mostly through texts and occasionally at work, but for the last 4 days, I have been living with my cousin. Honestly, I am disgusted, but I also don't know what to do exactly. Like, I feel a mixture of being cheated on, which I know he didn't do anything with her, but still, I can't explain it. But on top of that, I feel disgusted that my husband was this sort of a man. But even talking about it to my friends or family feels weird. I tried to share with my cousin, but the embarrassment didn't allow me to say anything. I just don't know what to do right now. I can't stay here forever. I'll have to head back sooner rather than later, but I also don't think I can just go back home and pretend that none of this happened or I didn't see any of this. So thought this was the best way to stay anonymous and ask for some form of advice. What should I do and how should I progress? Update. So, a lot happened in the course of the few hours. I honestly wanted to wait a few more days to cool off myself and then do whatever was needed. But some of the comments did have me worried. If he got an idea and deleted everything, if he did something harmful in the meantime, and as my friend pointed out, if he somehow, as unlikely as it might be, found the post and put 2 and 2 together. We ended up going over around 4 p.m.-ish, knowing we'd gave a few hours to collect whatever. I made sure to copy everything on the 2 folders to a flash drive, and took a video of it being from his laptop too, in case that was something needed. Then, as another comment suggested, we looked for my name, which came out with nothing but regular pics and stuff. After that, my friend asked me to look up co-workers' names, and when I did, that hit some results, with 4 other co-workers' names, all women, but none to same extent as the boss daughter. Like between the downloaded pics, creep shots, and edited pics, all 4 of them combined didn't match hers. All the folders were hidden the same way, inside a few layers of new folders, like one folder inside another, etc. up to like 8, 9 new folders. We took those too. Then my friend pointed out that some of those might be files he received, since the file names were different, and some were similar to WhatsApp files as she pointed out. This is something I hadn't noticed, but the edited files were definitely named differently, some being daughter's name plus porn action, and then others just being something like IMG number and then WA0014 or something along that line, which my friend said are pics he received in WhatsApp. We confirmed that they were indeed received from WhatsApp in the pic information. This ultimately made me do something that I shouldn't have done, since it could have blown up in my face. But it had made me anxious and I needed answers. So I asked my friends if they would stay till my husband gets back. They agreed, and I decided to take that time to pack my bags, just necessary things for now. My friends did say he's logged into Facebook, but didn't want to check his Facebook without me, and by the time they told me that, it was already time for him to come back, so we decided to not do anything. We waited and waited until he finally came back. He was surprised to see us, but didn't seem to suspect anything, and I told him to sit down. He did, and I think that's when he noticed his laptop on the couch and asked what was going on. I told him I saw some things related to the boss's daughter, and that I wanted an explanation. He tried to get angry at first, but quickly dropped that act. I told him I wanted to hear what he had to say and then decide what to do. He said he was fine talking, but only if my friends waited in the dining or another room, as he wanted to explain things to me alone. My friends were hesitant, but I told them it's fine, and that if they hear any issues, to send the drive link to the boss. This was a bluff that I wish I had thought about before he came, but I told him that I saved everything on a G drive and wouldn't hesitate sending it to the boss if he tried anything. He assured me he wouldn't act up and asked me what I wanted to know. At that point, I really wanted to hit him. Just the look on his face, he looked guilty, like he was looking for excuses but failing or something. I don't know, but I really hated it. But I stayed calm and told him I say a lot of things, including all the pics of her, the edits, and a few other things. I asked him to explain. He kept asking me exactly what I wanted to know, and it was becoming obvious that he was either stalling for an excuse or trying to see how much I knew. I told him finally that I saw the pics, the hidden cam pics, and even the edits. He pleaded with me to not get mad and hear him out. And I told him I'll consider it. He took a minute and told me that he had noticed he was growing more and more attracted to her sexually, and he apparently struggled with these emotions a lot, which is why he did that, and that he wanted to release his tension without harming anyone, which is why he made those and kept it to himself. I then asked to see his WhatsApp, and the color on his face almost drained. He told me I knew he didn't use WhatsApp, but I told him I had checked his Google Play to see what apps he had installed. Another lie, but I was sure he was using WhatsApp, so I still went with it. After a bit, he handed me the phone and told me to not overreact. I took his phone and searched around for a bit. He has a lot of pointless apps downloaded, and it was hard to spot, especially since it wasn't even on the home screen, but on a folder file inside the slide screen thingy Android has, on the third page. Sorry if the explanation confuses you. I open it to find just one group chat with 3 other colleagues, members of the team he is in, basically. And it was just filled with pics of this girl. Creep shots taken from different areas, zoomed in for the most part, from today, like literally a few minutes before he handed me the phone. A lot of conversations in Bangla about fantasies on how they would have fucked her. Scrolling up, it keeps getting worse and worse. I won't go into details on the specifics, but a lot of it was about wanting to force themselves on her, as a revenge on the boss kind of thing, but with her acting as the boss. And some were even full on well-thought-out scenarios where they are playing out what they'd do and what not. If you ever read something and just faced pure whiplash, that was me at that moment, literally unable to process it properly. He kept apologizing, telling me he loved me, and that this was all just to keep himself in control, and that it was ultimately just harmless fantasizing. I only caught bits and pieces of what he was saying before just turning on the screen recorder and scrolling, recording the conversations, and the more I scrolled up, the more vile it got. The conversation did predate my husband joining, it seemed, but that didn't really matter. He was very actively taking part in it. I got a good chunk of it, but it didn't seem to end, so I simply went to the chat media. And even that was a huge scrolling down of pics, creep shots from phones, fakes, etc. I ended up getting as much as I could and sending it over to me, making sure it's saved on my phone. All the while he kept begging me to forgive him and not ruin his life and career. Sorry, and I quote, our life and careers. I told him I felt betrayed, and I told him I was disgusted at the man he was. And through his apologizing, he kept insisting it didn't really hurt anyone. But I told him it hurt me, and if she found out, it would hurt her too, and he simply pleaded with me not to tell her. For a while we just cried, for different reasons I presume, but the entire time he kept switching between how he's sorry and he loves me, to how it's not as bad as I am making it out to be, and how they were just messing around online and weren't hurting anyone. My friends checked in on me a few times, but didn't interfere. After a while, I pulled myself up and told him that I don't see myself staying with him and that I want a divorce. He pleaded with me not to do so, but I simply said that I didn't want to listen to his excuses. I then told him that I wanted to take the laptop, and he froze. I was half expecting him to reject me, but he simply begged me not to show this to the boss or the daughter. I told him I wasn't sure if I wanted to do that, which was a lie, and that I am thinking it over. I told him not to delete the WhatsApp conversations or tell the others, and that if he does, I will send everything to the boss. Ultimately, I want to talk to the daughter first, and then decide what to do and how to tell the father. But that will have to wait, I guess. There were a bit more pleading, and I simply left it on, I don't know what I want to do, I need to think it over and will let him know, and told him to not contact me in the meantime. And that was all we said as we left, with his laptop. I do hope he doesn't alert his friends, but even if he did, it wouldn't matter, since the screen recording has their names and numbers on the group chat and a huge chunk of the stuff they said. The thing is, since nothing physical happened, I know the police won't take it seriously 90% of the times, with the only possible time they might take it seriously is if the girl herself took action, so I intend to give her all of what I have and let her proceed with whatever actions she chooses to take there. I do wish I had waited to talk to lawyers before taking things this far, but the fear and emotions had me wrapped up, and I just ended up taking action. It seems to have worked out, but I don't know. Husband seemed pretty defeated today, but considering how little it feels like I know him, I honestly can't tell with him anymore. I will see how things play out, and maybe do one final update. But from my understanding, things will probably just end with a divorce and him getting fired. Still, thank you all for the help, even just snapping me into action. When we were leaving, he was basically sobbing and begging for forgiveness, or claiming how it's all just a mistake and nothing actually happened, to the point where I almost did feel bad for me, almost. But I don't think I can feel sympathy after those chats and whatnot. My friends luckily was also there to remind me that regardless of what he says, his actions are not for me to forgive. Right now, I don't really know what to feel. My mind's a bit of a mess, and things are processing weirdly. Apologies in advance if some of this is incoherent, or feels like there are blanks in between stuff. Trust me, there are blanks in my head too right now. A few things I did want to specify. On the post, some people took the "he's not tech-savvy" bit as though he isn't good with tech at all, which isn't the case. I think of tech-savvy as being great with tech, and that's what I meant, that he's not that great, but he is still decent. We work in RMG offices. A lot of our work is with Modaris, Photoshop, and Illustrator, and he is decent with them. I just meant that in a sense that he's not the type to hide folders or passcode wall stuff, if that makes sense. Second is, hidden cam was less talking about actual hidden cam, and more just the style of it. Most of those are taken via phone, and as we now found out, multiple phones from different people. Third, some people thought she was a minor. She isn't. She is 20 as of this year. But that still doesn't change the fact that he knew her when she was a minor and that they started this when she was 19. Fourthly, I have been going back and forth with who to tell exactly. And while she is still young, she is strong. And as much as I hate to say this after hearing it from my husband for so long, she is mature for her age. And as she's directly involved, I think it's only fair I tell her and let her decide who she wants to share these with. I have made attempts to reach out, preferably outside work, and I'll let he decide how she wants to approach everything from her side. Fifth, am I worried about my job too? A bit for a few reasons. Firstly, because me and my husband were both recommended by my relative. And now, all of a sudden, that changes to someone my relative recommended creeping on the boss's daughter. And secondly, because I will be technically the ex-wife of the guy who stalked her, to her, and the boss, so that's something to worry about too. But regardless, I think it's still the right decision to make. Lastly, about the divorce. I am worried for it, for sure, but we don't necessarily have a joint fortune, and most of our finances are our own, with a very small fund saved up that we usually keep for trips and stuff. And I personally think I have enough proof on me too. But still, I will get legal counseling within the next few days, preferable before things blow up on his face. I am currently staying at a friend's for a few days while I look for a new flat. I wanted to move in with my parents for a bit, but my gut is telling me that's the last place I should go once the news breaks. Update, November 14th, 2023, 5 days after original post. So I think this will be the only update. I saw a few people were asking for updates before too, but I honestly needed some time to myself too and wanted to see how things played out before making an update. So, as I said in the last edit and some of the comments, I ended up going to the boss's daughter, showed her everything I had and told her I had the laptop too, if she needed. I could tell it was a good bit for her to process initially, but she said she's used to stuff like this. Yeah, fuck this place honestly. And so, composed herself. Afterwards, she asked if it would be fine for me to help her go through the screenshots and screen recordings and pics, since she'd rather not have to go into checking the details herself, and I agreed. We sat at a local food chain and basically wrote out a detailed HR report, like not a report to the HR, but a report from the HR regarding that team. I went over the different aspects of the texts caught on the screen recording and the edited pics, as well as the creep shots of her. She reassured me that I won't be facing any consequences for this and to leave talking to her father to her. She asked if I were to be called to the police station, if I would be willing to go, and I said I would. She concluded that while in other areas this could have been used to better punish them, high chances are that this won't do much, other than maybe a few days' worth of jail. but that she would still be going to the police, as this will be a good way to make sure if they ever even considered doing something, this could be used to screw them over. As for their jobs, she said she would keep them for a few days. While the filing and reports work, it's way up then, fire them on spot with no reference or experience certificate, basically rendering any attempts of showing work experience in this company impossible. And should they try, future hirers will be sent the HR report we built. We concluded the meeting there, with her telling me to not worry and just not interact with them at work. After that, I spoke to a lawyer, showed him everything I had, and while he took a small bit, said that things can be done relatively easily. Thing is, it's not like me or my husband have that much joint property or wealth that there would be much of a dirty breakup financially. But from the looks of things, so far at least, things seem to be going on my favor. My husband did call a few times and texted to see if I would reconsider, but I blocked him more or less. Didn't want any part of his BS, honestly. This is the part where the shitstorm I had mentioned started. Calls and messages from relatives, all with the purpose of letting me know that these things happen, and that I shouldn't hold it against him. I talked to my mother, and found out that what he told her, and a few other relatives, including his parents, were, I got jealous, 'cause he accidentally showed interest in the boss's daughter, but never planned to act on it. This caused almost everyone but his mother to side with him, while his mother called me to apologize, saying she was ashamed of what her son had said. I had originally told my husband I wouldn't blow this out of proportion, but ended up telling my mother and his parents, the former who responded exactly as I thought she would. She told me it's not like he acted on it, and that this much is nothing to ruin a marriage over. This didn't surprise me since when one of my aunts got cheated on, she and her other sister had essentially taken the stance of, just forgive it and ignore it, move on and don't bring it up, things will be happy. My mother and I had a huge back and forth, where she brought up family reputation, embarrassment if family finds out what he did, embarrassment if I'm a divorcee in my 30s. Yeah, that's a thing here sadly, and yeah, 29 is still reaching 30s. We ended the call on pretty bad terms, but it was expected. The family itself is more or less on the same stance, with only some choosing to stay away, and even now when I ended up sharing the exact reason with a few members, they responded, let it go and fix the relationship, or something akin to that. The pleasant surprise came from telling his parents, though, who took my side. After things blew up, his mother apologized to me, telling me she was ashamed of what her son did, while the father told me he will make sure my husband won't be causing any issues for me, in the divorce, or in general. I was honestly expecting them to take his side like my family, so this was a welcome surprise. Yesterday, the team were called into the boss's office along with some police. I don't know what was said and done, but they were in there for a long time, and by the time they all left, they just looked defeated, especially my husband. It seems she did exactly what she said she'd do, and fired them. I don't the specifics of it. I don't necessarily intend to ask either. As for me personally, it's been rough. It's easy to get angry when everything is happening. It's the moments when things are calm, that memories and feelings get the best of things. But I will be fine. I get to keep my job, which is huge IMO. The whole thing with family isn't getting much better, it seems. Got a bit worse after the firing. I have my stuff, and I have moved in with a friend for a few days while I look for a smaller apartment. As for husband, I don't exactly know, but I assume he'll be moving in with his parents, who are pretty annoyed with him. The apartment we stayed in was something we both contributed to live in, so without income, I can't see him maintaining it at all. Honestly, this is probably it. I don't really see myself making any more updates to this. It's been a mess, but still, I want to thank everyone for the love and support. It really helped a lot. I haven't really thought out the response too well, might have missed parts of stuff. If I did, I'll try to answer anything I can. But other than that, this might be it.